Kalau kayak gitu nanti Hi, Sana and Ben. Hello. Hello.
Lúc phải vậy. Mình cái buồn. Đó, đó. Ê,
Hello,
Good morning.
testing to speak.
Hi, Ben. Sana, can you hear me?
Yes, now can hear you.
Okay. Now I can hear you also.
Mm.
All right. So, okay, shall we start? I think everyone's here. Most of them, I think.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So, oh, so we will start. Sakar, our colleague, will start the meeting. In Bahasa first, and then welcoming everyone in English. So I hope you don't mind if we conduct it in both languages. Because most of our participants also are Indonesians, and I just want to make sure that they also can engage with our meeting. All right, Sakar.
Oke, selamat siang. Suara saya cukup terdengar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sebelumnya terima kasih untuk teman-teman dan juga rekan-rekan semua yang sudah join pada Zoom siang hari ini. Semoga semua dalam keadaan sehat dan juga antusias untuk mengikuti acara movie screening dan juga webinar kita dalam beberapa jam ke depan. Topik yang diangkat kali ini seperti yang teman-teman sudah ketahui bersama merupakan topik yang menarik ya, karena kita kedatangan langsung Ben dan Sana yang akan memberikan
Recording in
perspektif
progress.
dan juga pengalaman mereka terkait isu demokrasi dan HAM khususnya yang terjadi di Western Sahara. Ben dan Sana dengan nama lengkap Benjamin Ladra dan juga Sana Godby merupakan seorang pembela HAM asal Swedia yang aktif mengkampanyekan kemerdekaan Western Sahara dengan cara bersepeda keliling dunia. Indonesia sendiri merupakan negara ke-18 yang sudah mereka singgahi sejauh ini. Mungkin itu saja ya perkenalan singkat dengan pembicara kita pada siang hari ini. Untuk mempersingkat waktu, sebelumnya saya izin untuk mempersilakan Ibu Ayu selaku dosen pengampu untuk memandu jalannya acara. Silakan Ibu.
Okay. All right. So, Ben and Sana, Sakar was just introducing you to our audience today, and we kind of like really happy that you are here now and that we are finally are able to conduct this meeting event, even though we have to have it virtual. We were planning to have it offline here in Jakarta before things got complicated with India. But anyway, so welcome and thank you again.
Dalam anggaran negara.
All right, so yeah, sorry. So welcome again. Happy to have today's discussion. So as we planned, we are having the movie screening first before we continue with our discussion. And I hope we also have the guests coming for. I think that's technical issues here. But anyway, so we will start with the movie screening. And then we will continue the discussion with Sana and Ben, but also from our colleague from Western Sahara. And then everyone. So basically, the majority of the meeting today are our my students from Political Science Department at the Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Jakarta. We also have here some other colleagues from other universities, and of course some lecturers also coming here join us. We are expecting to have the discussion until around 4:30. So we'll start with the screening and then continue with discussion. And then I hope and because this is part of the program on courses called Democracy and Human Rights. So we are very happy to conduct this meeting and discussing this very important issues that I'm pretty sure that most of us here are not really aware of what's happening there. And we are very lucky to have this opportunity to discuss it with you. So, okay. Jadi kita mulai dulu dengan screening filmnya, film yang sudah di all right, so we start with the discussion first. Okay, hold on a second. Oke, maaf ada sedikit koreksi. Jadi kita akan mulai dengan diskusi dulu. Nanti ada Ben dan Sana yang akan memaparkan update kepada kita situasi di sana seperti apa. Kemudian ada
together with the organization that we started called Solidarity Rising. And we are currently biking around the world to raise awareness about this very important issue of Western Sahara, Sahara Barat. And we were in Indonesia just the last November before having to leave. And right now we are in Italy.
And this picture that you can see, it was taken the first day of our bike tour in Gothenburg, which is our hometown in Sweden. It was taken in May, almost 2 years ago, on the day where we started our bike tour. And now we have gone through 20 countries already.
So briefly, Western Sahara is the last remaining colony in Africa and the biggest colony in the world. And very few people are aware of this. During our time in Indonesia, as you can see, the flag, it's very similar to the flag of Palestine. So we were talking to a lot of people mistaking the flag for Palestine and explaining the difference between Palestine and Sahara Barat.
So now we wanted to give you like a brief background about Western Sahara and talk a little bit about our bike tour and also what we did in Indonesia. And then our friend Sid Ahmed is going to talk a little bit more about the experiences of growing up in the refugee camps and the situation now in Western Sahara.
So we're starting off by showing you a small video of where we've been, so you can get an idea. We're both from Sweden, so we started in our hometown of Gothenburg. This was in May 2022. And then we started biking through Europe, heading eastwards towards Asia. Unfortunately, there was COVID restrictions, so we couldn't bike through the Asian countries, so we had to take a flight all the way to South Korea, and we biked in Japan and Taiwan. And then we flew down to a country, and we spent a good 2 or so months in Indonesia. And now we are in Italy, and we have 1 year left on our journey. We've been on the road for 2 years already, and our final destination will be in Algeria, in the refugee camps, which Sid Ahmed will tell you more about later.
So here you can see the whole route that we've taken for the past 2 years and how we will continue to the end. And the reason why we chose to bike in these areas is in Asia, for example, there are very few countries that have recognized Western Sahara and not a lot of solidarity organizations. So we really wanted to bike there and inform people. And then Europe is so important, as always, because they have a lot of political power in the West when it comes to the occupation. So that's why we chose to bike in these countries specifically.
Western Sahara is right below Morocco, to the west of Algeria and to the north of Mauritania, with the Atlantic coast on its west. On the left side map, you can see the countries in Africa that were colonized in 1945 by the European countries, and it's pretty much the whole of the continent. And today, 2024, there is only one remaining colony on the African continent, and it's Western Sahara. Now, maps can be a little bit deceiving. Western Sahara doesn't look to be very big, but it's actually huge. It's roughly the same size of Italy, roughly the same size as the UK. So it's a very vast land, about 2,000 kilometers from the north to the south, which, to give you an Indonesian perspective, was roughly the same distance as from Bali to Aceh. Really, really long.
And they were colonized by Spain for almost 100 years. So a lot of Sahrawis today still speak Spanish. So that's why they're still considered a colony by the United Nations, because they were never formally decolonized by Spain, just like Indonesia was colonized by the Netherlands. So it's still a process of decolonizing Western Sahara.
And for those of you who are interested, it's actually very interesting to go into the United Nations website and look at the 17 remaining non-self-governing territories. That's the technical, legal, official term for colonies. There are 17 remaining in the world, but most people have no idea which they are.
So the Sahrawi people, which Sid Ahmed will tell you more about since he is Sahrawi himself, are a nomadic people. Traditionally, they used to move in the desert with their animals, like camels and goats, a very peaceful people. And they speak Arabic, but it's a dialect that's called Hassaniya, which is different from the dialect spoken in Morocco, for example, Darija. And the Sahrawi people, they have always been a peaceful nomadic people until they were colonized by Spain, when they were kind of forced to form their identity. Because before they were living in tribes, and when the Spanish came, they forced the Sahrawis to move to cities and change their structures of how they organized. And the Sahrawis decided to form an independence movement to fight the Spanish. So they got rid of the tribal system and they became one people, the Sahrawi people, to fight the Spanish. But of course, the Sahrawis, they have their own culture, their recognized culture, their own traditions that are different, for example, from the Moroccans. And this culture and these traditions are even recognized by the UN as a specific culture and unique identity that only the Sahrawi people have, and that is not shared by the Moroccans.
And to give you a time perspective of when all of this is happening, Spain colonized Western Sahara in the mid-1880s. So over 100 years ago, 150 years ago, they were first colonized by Spain. And they remained a Spanish colony for 100 years until 1975.
So in 1975, when Spain actually was supposed to give Western Sahara independence, they instead made an illegal agreement with Morocco and Mauritania, the neighbors of Western Sahara. And what happened was that Spain left their army, and in return, they got the promise that they would get economic benefits from the occupation. So Morocco invaded with the army from the north and Mauritania from the south, and they bombed the Sahrawi people. So because of the bombings, they used a lot of chemical, like white phosphorus, for example, that burns your skin, and also napalm that was used in the Vietnam War. So of course, a lot of women and children, they had to escape during the bombings, and they escaped into Algeria, as you can see in the pictures next to Western Sahara. And that's why today there are still refugee camps in Algeria from that day 50 years ago when they escaped. And the remaining people, the people who stayed in Western Sahara, they are still living under occupation today in Western Sahara. Because when Morocco and Mauritania invaded, there was a war for almost 16 years. And during this time, of course, the Sahrawis, they fought for their independence, they fought to retain their country, but Morocco got a lot of support from powerful countries like the US, for example, that gave them a lot of weapons. And they also built a wall. You can see the wall in the picture in the corner to the left. This is the longest active wall in the world. So Morocco built this with the help of Israel. to stop the Sahrawi people from managing to take back their country. So you can see the red line in the map that separates Western Sahara. That's actually the wall. It's as long as from Bali to Aceh, very, very long. It's surrounded by 10 million landmines and 100,000 Moroccan soldiers that are guarding the wall every day. And it separates the Sahrawi people today. So you can see to the left along the sea, that is where the occupied territory is today, where the Sahrawi people are living under occupation. And then to the right, you can see a small part which is liberated. So that is the part that the Sahrawis managed to free during the war. And that is still a free territory. The problem is that in this territory, it's very hot. It's long from the sea. There's a lot of small villages because all of the big cities are along the sea. And today there is a new war again, where there are drones, Israeli drones, Turkish drones flying over the wall, which makes it very hard for people to live there. So most Sahrawis today, they live either along the coast in the occupied territory or in the refugee camps in Algeria.
Now, Morocco in 1975 wanted international recognition over its claim on Western Sahara. However, it didn't get it. It went to the International Court of Justice, which I'm sure you are all familiar, is right now investigating South Africa's claim on the genocide in Gaza, and also Algeria's claim in 2022. They question if the Israeli occupation is illegal. Now, in 1975, Morocco asked the court, do we have a claim of sovereignty on Western Sahara? And it presented its documents and evidence showing its ties to the Sahrawis. And the court said that, sure enough, there were a few ties between some Sahrawi tribes and the Moroccan Sultanate stretching back hundreds of years. But those ties are not stronger than the right of self-determination of the Sahrawi people. And Morocco does not have a claim of sovereignty over Western Sahara. Morocco, like Israel, ignores international law and proceeded to launch its military invasion just hours after the court said that it cannot claim Western Sahara. So the occupation is illegal, and the whole world, according to international law, agrees that it's illegal. The whole world except the United States and Israel. Now, Morocco didn't just want to occupy Western Sahara. The Moroccan king had the idea of Greater Morocco, an idea that was instigated by the Istiklal Party in the 50s in Morocco. And as you can see on this map, the idea of Greater Morocco incorporates a lot more than just Western Sahara. It incorporates part of Algeria, and sure enough, Morocco has invaded Algeria in the 60s in what is called the Sand Wars, trying to claim western part of Algeria. They couldn't, however, because the Algerian army managed to fight off the Moroccan invading army. And perhaps if history would have taken a different turn and Morocco had succeeded in occupying all of Western Sahara, remember the wall, on the right side of the wall, that area is controlled by the Sahrawi people themselves. So Morocco isn't occupying the whole country, it's occupying 80% of the country. They were stopped in their military invasion by the Sahrawis. If they weren't stopped, maybe today they would have occupied and invaded Mauritania, perhaps Mali as well. We don't know. However, this is the map that Morocco refers to when it has its historical claim over its greater territory, and it blames European colonialism for all its problems. Now, that story is very familiar. You can see it in Russia, for example, with their claim over Ukraine. You can see it in China with its claim over Xinjiang and Tibet. You can see it even in your own country with East Timor, for example, and even West Papua.
So we often get the question, what is the reason for why Morocco wants Western Sahara, why they're occupying Western Sahara? And this is one of the reasons. The king of Morocco, his entire reputation and the show of power lies with this occupation. So the idea of him and the Greater Morocco. And during the time of the occupation, when it started, there was actually military generals who wanted to do a military coup and take the power from the king. So of course, by occupying Western Sahara, he could promise these military generals land and a lot of natural resources. So by moving these generals into occupied Western Sahara and giving them Western Sahara, he could get rid of them and stay in power. And for him, the occupation is very important. He is afraid that if the occupation ends, then he will end as well. And the natural resources in Western Sahara, there are a lot. So the biggest phosphate mine in the world is in Western Sahara. Phosphate is a mineral that is used in farming, in fertilizer. And the biggest mine is in Western Sahara. And the Spanish, they were the ones that first started to extract from this mine. And now the Moroccans are doing the same. And they're, of course, earning a lot of money every year by doing it and selling it to different countries. There is also a lot of fish, believe it or not. A lot of people think Western Sahara is just a desert. But as you saw, they have a really long coast and it's filled with fish. And unfortunately, Morocco sells that fish to countries. For example, they have a deal with the European Union. And all of the money that comes from buying the fish and buying the phosphate, it finances the occupation. It goes to the Moroccan military and it doesn't go to the Sahrawis. A lot of Sahrawis are unemployed. They're discriminated in occupied Western Sahara. They're not allowed to work in the mine or any of these companies. So this is a very problematic way for Morocco to legitimize their occupation by stealing these resources and selling them to countries and companies. And right now, for example, we're in Italy, and Italy has several companies that are operating in occupied Western Sahara. So Morocco has this project called like the Green Energy Project, where they have thousands of wind farms and solar energy farms. And the Siemens that you can see in the picture is one of the companies there, but also companies in Italy and other countries that are investing in these energies. And that's also illegal, of course, because this money, this project, it only finances the occupation.
So to go back to the historical timeline, we have 100 years of occupation from the mid-1880s up until 1975. Then we have the invasion by Morocco and Mauritania and a war for 16 years where Mauritania loses the war. After 4 years, they are defeated militarily by the Polisario. And Morocco is getting a lot of support by the West. They are getting funds and money from the United States, from France, from the Netherlands, from so many countries. We were in Austria, for example, and we met a kindergarten teacher, and he said that Austria was a bit remorseful for sending tanks to Morocco during the time of the war. So now they're sending, he had been to the refugee camps on a program because they are sending kindergarten teachers now to the Sahrawi refugee camps as an apology for funding the war. And some of Morocco's strongest allies, as you see in the picture, is France. On the right side picture, you will see the French President Macron sitting with the Moroccan king. And on the left side, you will see an Israeli diplomat and a Moroccan diplomat bowing to each other. During the Trump administration, Trump was pushing the Abraham Accords across the Middle East, trying to get Arab countries to recognize Israel as a country and normalizing relations. And Morocco, of course, was very eager to do that, but their ask was that the United States and Israel recognizes their occupation of Western Sahara. And then happened a trade of recognitions of occupations. So Morocco recognized Israel's occupation of Palestine in return for the US and Israel recognizing Morocco's occupation of Western Sahara. This happened in 2020, that's 4 years ago. And since then, there's been a lot of military aid, military trade going from Israel to Morocco. Morocco is buying Israeli drones, Israeli spyware. They're talking about sending the Merkava tanks from Israel to Morocco. That would make Morocco the first country in the world to buy Israeli tanks. And Israel is also helping Morocco to build a military base on its border with Algeria. So it's very strong ties with Israel. And somehow Morocco has managed the difficult act of being loved by both Israel and Palestine, because the Moroccan people are very supportive of Palestine, and the Israeli government, or the Moroccan government, is very supportive of Israel. So Palestinians and Israelis alike are very happy with the way things are. But as a state, Morocco is very, very pro-Israel, unfortunately.
And in 1991, there was supposed to be a referendum that was agreed upon between Morocco and the Polisario. That's why the war stopped after 16 years, and they had a ceasefire until this year of 2020 when the US recognized the occupation. So for almost 30 years, there was no war. There was a ceasefire, and the Sahrawis waited for the referendum that was promised. The United Nations, they formed a mission in Western Sahara called MINURSO, and they were supposed to carry out this referendum. And they even collected the voter registry of the Sahrawis. So we met Sahrawi people that showed us a note that says, I'm registered to vote in a referendum. But this referendum never happened because of this power alliance that Morocco has. As you know, with the case of Palestine, even if all countries in the world would want the ceasefire in Palestine, it's enough if only the US puts in their veto in the Security Council. And it's the same with Western Sahara. Because the US is funding and supporting Morocco, they also have a vote and veto vote in the Security Council, as well as France, that is the biggest trading partner of Morocco. They are also putting in their veto in the Security Council. And this means that the referendum has never happened. So Western Sahara is still colonized, it's still occupied, and we are waiting and we are trying to get this information out so that the referendum can finally happen and they can vote for their independence.
In the occupied territory of Western Sahara, it is like a police state. These pictures are from the capital city of Laayoune, where you see police and soldiers on the street corners. And I've been there myself, and it's one of the most militarized places that I've ever visited. And I've been to Kurdistan, I've been to West Papua, I've been to Palestine before. And when you take the bus from southern Morocco to the capital of Laayoune, there are over 10 military checkpoints where soldiers go onto the bus looking for foreigners. Now, journalists, they are not allowed at all to enter Western Sahara, which is one of the reasons that you will not see this story in the media, because there are no journalists there to write the story, because they are forbidden from entering. Human rights organizations, even Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and the UN Human Rights organization are forbidden from entering Western Sahara, which is one of the reasons that you will not find many reports. These organizations still write reports, but inside the capital, when I was walking around there, I was always followed by the Moroccan Secret Service. And right next to the UN building, there is a huge Moroccan prison. And there are just soldiers everywhere, and they are standing around. They are making sure that nobody is protesting and nobody is raising their voice. In order to meet with Sahrawi people, I even had to escape from the police in a car chase. So the Sahrawis put me in a car and tried to drive away from the police so we could meet in private. And even though the police were following, the Sahrawis were driving faster. It was all a very scary moment for me. But somehow we managed to escape. And only by escaping from the eyes of the police are you able to meet the local people and have real conversations. And I met many people who had spent decades in Moroccan prisons, being faced with the worst kind of torture. Women are facing sexual violence and harassment all the time by Moroccan police and army. But the courts in Western Sahara are all Moroccan, so there is no justice to be had. If you are beaten, if you are raped, if someone steals from you and they are Moroccan, you will not get any justice from it. So the people of Western Sahara are living under the most terrible conditions you can imagine. Just to give you a sense, there is an organization called Freedom House. They measure political and civil rights in different countries. And of course, countries like North Korea, Syria are right now on the bottom. But on the same level as North Korea is Western Sahara, according to Freedom House, in how many political and civil rights that they have.
So that is the situation in the occupied territory. As you remember, the area that we showed you along the coast. Then there are the refugee camps, which Sir Ahmed can tell you more about since he grew up there. I'm just going to say something very short. And that is that in the beginning, when the women and children came there, as you can see in the picture, 50 years ago, there was nothing there. It was in the middle of the desert. The weather is just getting hotter and hotter. And of course, there was no possibility to grow food, to get water, internet, electricity. So a lot of people died from diseases, and they were dependent on aid from Algeria, from the UN food program that sent basic food packages to them. And still today, it's the same. So today, after 50 years, it's still like that the Sahrawis that are living in the camps are dependent on humanitarian aid. Over 90% of the people in the camps are dependent on aid to survive. And they've been eating this basic aid food program for 50 years. And it's not nutritious, it's not food that you're supposed to live on for 50 years. So a lot of people are suffering from anemia, from malnutrition, especially small children. And despite the issues of living in this hot desert, which is very far away from the coast and big cities, they are still fighting the Sahrawis. So they have a government in exile in the camps with ministries that they elect every 4 years, a president. They built their own schools and hospitals. And a lot of this was built by the women who came to this area in the beginning. So while the men were fighting in the war, the women built the schools, the hospitals, so that their children could study and so that their people could get health care. And in that way, it's very inspiring. And both me and Benjamin has been to the camps and visited. So the occupied territory is very hard to go there, of course. But the refugee camps, it's easy, and they love to have visitors right now. And as we're speaking, just the other day, there was the National Day of Western Sahara, and they were celebrating and with a big party in the camps. And they also have a marathon, the Sahara Marathon, where people go from different countries and they run in the camps and stay with Sahrawi families. So they do a lot of things to get people to go to the camps. And I really recommend going there. It's a beautiful experience. And again, Sid Ahmed can talk more about life in the camps.
We've been on the road telling this story for the past 2 years, going through 20 countries. And our campaign, the idea for it is that if you do something extreme, then you can get the attention that you need in order to tell the story of Western Sahara. That is why we are biking. It's not because we are bike enthusiasts or bike professionals or anything like that. It's because we think that biking as a method, just like walking as a method, is a very good way of reaching people. You can reach people in the villages, you can reach people in the cities, and people are always interested in hearing the stories of someone who has traveled for a very long time. And in every new country we come to, we try to meet with politicians, we go to universities to do lectures, we meet with human rights organizations, we try to talk to journalists, to do media interviews, and we have been to so many places.
Yeah, here are some pictures from different events that we've done, like lecturing at schools in Denmark, biking demonstration in Germany, university lecture in Japan. Also, we talked to a lot of people on the street who just stop us and ask us about the flag that we're carrying. So we were in Indonesia in November until December, so about 2 months. And we did a lot of university lectures, mainly in Surabaya and Yogyakarta. And also we stayed with Indonesian families in their homes and talked to people on the streets. A lot of people thought we were carrying the Palestine flag because it's so similar. So we had to explain to them the situation in Western Sahara. And most people had never heard about it before, so it was the first time. And after 2 months of campaigning, our experience in Indonesia was really great. Like, we managed to meet a lot of interesting people and organizations, university students. And our goal in Indonesia was to start some type of solidarity network for Western Sahara, because so far it's non-existent. Like, there hasn't been a movement for Western Sahara in Indonesia. But there is a big potential, because we know that it's one of the biggest supporters of Palestine, that the Palestine demonstrations, there are millions of people that go and protest. So if people just knew about the situation in Western Sahara and realize how similar they are, then we think more and more people could do the same for Western Sahara.
Now, unfortunately, we think our campaign, or fortunately, I should say, it got a lot of attention. We spoke to over 30 journalists in Indonesia, and probably the Moroccan authorities started knowing about our activities in your country. And we think that they contacted the Indonesian authorities because one day we got a phone call saying that the Indonesian secret police were looking for us at one of our friends' places. And of course, this freaked us out. We don't know why they were looking, and we didn't care to find out either. When the secret police are looking for you, you should always get out of there. So we left Indonesia in a hurry. We were planning on coming to Jakarta to meet you all in person, but in Yogyakarta is when we found out that we were wanted by the police. And that's why we left very suddenly to go back to Sweden for a little bit of rest. It was very stressful. Luckily, we made it out without any problems. And then we went to Italy, which is where we are now. We are in the city of Pisa, the famous city where the tower is leaning. And we hope to come back to Indonesia, of course, one day, but we're unsure what that whole affair was about. So we think we had to wait quite a few years before we can try to come back.
And of course, we did a lot of media interviews in Indonesia, both with the independent media and the bigger newspapers. And that's what we're doing in every country. Just the other day, we had a news piece in the Swedish national TV. So we think that's the power of biking, the attention that we get because we're biking and not because of the issue Western Sahara, because most journalists have never heard about Western Sahara, actually. And it's very common that we go to a university and we meet like the head of the university, even though it's international studies, and they've never heard about Western Sahara. So we're used to always starting from the beginning and explaining the story. And we're going to continue to do that for one more year on the road. And when we're home again, we're going to make it a documentary and continue to do speaking tours. So yeah, we'll see if we manage to enter Indonesia again. And we just wanted to end by saying that our organization is called Solidarity Rising. And we are very active on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, for example. We have a website where currently we're collecting documentaries, reports, books about Western Sahara. And that's a place where you can also go to find more information about Western Sahara in the future. And also contact us if you have any questions, if you want to join the solidarity movements in Indonesia for Western Sahara. We're happy to give advice and talk together about what can be done in Indonesia.
And finally, we want to say thank you for the opportunity that we could come and speak to you. Thank you to our two interns, which helped to organize this event together with us. And thank you to you, Lestari, for having us. And we're gonna finish there and hand it over to you and to Sid Ahmed, our colleague who's also in our organization from Western Sahara.
All right. Thank you, Sana and Ben. I think your insights and informations are really open our eyes. You are absolutely correct that the issue, the context of Western Sahara is hardly known for us. I mean, we knew a bit about Morocco, but it's for tourism things. But we never really know what's happening in the backyard. And that the Western Sahara, we've heard a long time ago about this conflict, but we never realized that, still long struggle until today. And the fact that there hasn't been any referendum, it's also something that we just learned. So, and we really appreciate what you've been doing so far. 20 countries, wasn't it? 20 countries.
Yes.
That's right.
Just amazing. Just amazing. So yeah, and I don't know if Professor Akihisa Matsuno is also here, because I also invited him to come here. But if he is here, then I would also like to thank Pak Aki for connecting us, linking me to you. And it's really a rare opportunity to have this kind of meeting with you. So Next is Sid Ahmad. I saw Sid here. Maybe Sid Ahmad, are you here? All right, so I can just give the screen to Sid Ahmad.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So thank you for inviting me to this webinar, and thank you, Benjamin and Sana, for this presentation. I didn't prepare any presentation. I'm using my phone, fortunately, for this webinar. So maybe Benjamin and Sana, you can screen some pictures from the camps. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sid Ahmed Jouli. I am a Sahrawi activist from the camps, and I studied political science in Algeria. I have a master's degree in political science in international relations from the university in Algeria, and now I left the camps in November 2022, and now I am in France. I'm studying now in France for 1 year. Yeah. So I will talk about the refugee camps, the Sahrawi refugee camps in southwest of Algeria, and how some Sahrawis, including my family, ended up in these refugee camps, and how they organize themselves in these refugee camps. And also I will talk a little bit about the Sahrawi state in exile and the political system and the education system in the camps. Yeah, so first of all, as Benjamin and Sana mentioned in their presentation, so Western Sahara was a Spanish colony until 1975. So Spain, unlike other colonizers in European colonizers, they didn't decolonize the territory. So they just divide Western Sahara between its neighbors, and they got some benefits, some economic benefit, and they left away. And this is how the war started in Western Sahara in 1975. So Morocco invaded Western Sahara from the north, and Mauritania from the south, and the Sahrawis were the only way out was towards the Algerian borders. So this is why thousands of Sahrawis ended up in refugee camps in southwest of Algeria. Initially, the Sahrawis were displaced internally inside the territory of Western Sahara. So they set up some camps in Tfariti, in Madrega, in some villages not very far from the Algerian territories. But again, the Moroccan airplanes bombarded these camps with white phosphorus and napalm bombs, and this is why Sahrawis decided to enter the Algerian territories and set up their camps there. So basically, there are 5 refugee camps, 5 big refugee camps in Algeria, near Algerian city called Tindouf. So it's basically in the Algerian desert. So Tindouf is located in a desert called Hamada Desert, which is one of the most harsh and difficult desert in the world. So the temperature in the summer, for example, can exceed 50 degrees. So it's very difficult, and it's very, very harsh situation for refugees. So my family fled the war in 1975, and I belong to a new Sahrawi generation who were born and raised in the camps. So I have never been to Western Sahara, even though I have uncles, aunts, and cousins who still there in the occupied territories. So this is also the case for many Sahrawis. The Sahrawi families are divided and separated between the camps in Algeria and the occupied territories in the occupied territories occupied by Morocco. Yeah, so these 5 refugee camps in Algeria was named after cities occupied in Western Sahara. Like I live in Sahara. So Sahara is the biggest refugee camp in among the 5 refugee camps, and Sahara also. There is a Sahara city which is occupied by Morocco, and there is a camp called Laayoune, which is the capital of Western Sahara, and there is another camp called Awserd and Dakhla and Bojdour, and all these cities were occupied by Morocco. So Sahrawis, they named their camps after their cities who has been occupied by Morocco. And this, I think, was a strategy by Sahrawis to not forget where they came from, and as also a daily reminder for them that the situation in the camps is temporarily, even it lasted more than 40 years. But many refugees, all of the refugees, actually, they still want to go back one day to their homeland. Yeah, so the refugee camps, they are one of the most organized camps in the world. So I have never been to other refugee camps, but this is the statement that I hear always from many foreigners who visited the camps. So they are very well organized, because the Sahrawi government in exile is their headquarters is in these camps. So they have everything. They have schools, hospitals, ministries, parliament. So everything like it's a state in exile. So even it's on the Algerian territories, but Algerians are not allowed to enter the camps without permission. And Sahrawi, all these institutions are run by Sahrawis, Sahrawi doctors, Sahrawi teachers, and engineers, and there are courts and everything. So it's the camps, they are very well organized, and we have our own identity card, ID card, and our own passports. And you have also to know that Western Sahara is a member of African Union, is actually a founding member of African Union. So Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic is recognized by the African Union and has membership in the African Union. Yeah. And yeah, as Benjamin and Sana mentioned also, the refugees, the Sahrawi refugees in the camps are totally dependent on the humanitarian aid. So there are UN agencies, UNHCR, for example, and other humanitarian NGOs, UN agencies that has been operating in the camp since 1975. And as Benjamin and Sana mentioned, the food distribution in the camps is dependent on the presence of these UN agencies. So the humanitarian situation also is very difficult. There are a lot of anemia among kids, and child mortality also rates are very high, and also malnutrition rates are very high among kids. So because the food that they get from the UN agencies is very basic food. It's about beans and flour and just basic food. Very unbalanced diet, actually. Yeah. So yeah, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, as I mentioned, is running these camps, but also is running the liberated territories. So Morocco now is occupying just 80% of the Western Sahara, and the remaining part is controlled by Polisario Front, which is the liberation movement, the Sahrawi liberation movement. But most of these liberated territories are deserts, so there is nothing there. There are some nomads who living there, but now also after the new war in 2020, November 2020, many of these nomads left these territories, and they settled in the camp. So this is like their second displacement. And now it's very difficult to visit the liberated territories, even though there is a presence from UN mission for organizing referendum in Western Sahara called MINURSO. There are some bases of MINURSO in liberated territories as well as in the occupied territories, but the role of the UN in the Western Sahara now is limited just to observing the situation. So they do some reports to the Security Council about the situation in general in Western Sahara, but however, their initial role was to organize a referendum in Western Sahara. So as Benjamin and Sana mentioned, many Sahrawis, including my family, also they registered to vote for this in this referendum after the ceasefire in 1991. But after 30 years, we realized that it was a play. It was just a manipulation from the Moroccan government to consolidate their occupation in Western Sahara. So now Morocco doesn't want to engage even in settlement and the peace process in Western Sahara, because they occupied most of the territory, and they occupied to the natural resources, all the natural resources, and they built the wall that Benjamin and Sana showed in the picture which separates the liberated territories from the occupied territories, and they feel very, very strong. They also have very strong allies, like in the Security Council, US and France, and always they get away with everything they do in the occupied territories. Human rights violations and war crimes always are protected by these powerful countries in the UN. So even though there are dozens of UN resolutions which state the occupation and recognize the self-determination to the Sahrawi people. Lastly, I would like to, the education system in the camps. So the camps, there are schools, kindergarten schools and secondary schools, and also just one high school in the camps. But most of the Sahrawi students, when they reach the high school, they go to continue their studies either in Algeria or some countries who have good relation with Western Sahara, like Cuba and Venezuela, and some of them they go to Europe to finish their studies. Travel about traveling. The refugee camps, they are very open to everyone want to visit the camps, unlike the occupied territories, which under a blockade. So the people are free to visit the camps. They have just to get Algerian visa and get in touch with Polisario representative in some countries, and they can go to the camps and see everything in the camps. About how we travel as refugees, as Sahrawi refugees outside the camps. So as I mentioned, the Western Sahara is partially recognized by some countries, by African Union, for instance, and we have a Sahrawi passport, but unfortunately we cannot travel with a Sahrawi passport to, for example, to Europe or some countries, because they don't recognize Western Sahara. But Algeria, as a host country to Sahrawi refugees, they give Algerian passports with, of course, with some limitations to Sahrawi refugees in order to travel outside the camp. Yeah, I think this is all from my side. So so please, if you have any questions or about the situation in the camps, so I will be happy to answer. And thank you again for inviting me. So
Thank you, Sid Ahmed, for the updates. We have very big sympathy of what happened there. And I was just wondering, I mean, before I open this forum to the participants, since it is one of the biggest camp there, is there any presence of international organizations such as the UN or international communities are involved in any ways?
yeah, so in the camps there is a huge presence of UN agencies like UNHCR, basically, who is running the humanitarian aid in the camps. UNHCR, and also there are dozens of international organizations like I had the opportunity to work with some of them. So there are some Danish organizations. There is Oxfam also, and they are working on different projects. Some of these projects is for women, for example. Some of this project is directed to youth, and some of them to elderly, and some of them to landmines victims. Yeah, so there are dozens of these international NGOs, and UN also is present in the camps. So MINURSO, which is the mission, the UN mission in Western Sahara, they have an office in Tindouf, in the Algerian city of Tindouf, and they have also some bases in liberated territories and in the occupied territories. Yeah, so UN is very present in the territory, in the camps.
Okay, thank you. So I welcome everyone from the audience. If you have any comments or more information that you think is needed, you can chat or you can raise your hand. Silakan kalau ada yang mau bertanya atau berkomentar, bisa di chat atau bisa angkat tangan. Ada dari peserta atau dari mahasiswa? Silakan. Ada. Oh, okay. Maybe so there's a suggestion that to give more close look and familiarity with the issue to that we gone to the movie screening. Would that be okay with you? Are you going to stay and maybe we can take more questions or comments after the movie?
Absolutely. We are staying for another 50 minutes. We have to leave the next hour.
Okay.
So it's okay.
All right. All right. So let's just start the movie screening, and then this is to give everyone more information and close looks of what happened there. Jadi teman-teman, kita langsung ke pemutaran filmnya supaya dapat gambaran sebetulnya bagaimana yang terjadi kondisi di sana. Nanti setelah pemutaran film, silakan teman-teman mahasiswa atau teman-teman peserta atau semua yang ada di sini bisa berkomentar atau memberikan pertanyaan ya kalau ada yang perlu disampaikan. Sekar, langsung aja Sekar.
ما خايف
سعيد صور سعيد
لا يشيل فوق راسي
صورنا
حتى انا صورت كامل
خلونا
اعطيني لا فوق راسي لا ندير انا فوق راسي
حصلت على أولى آلات التصوير حينما بدأت أشتغل ضمن مجموعة نشطاء يصورون ويقومون بتوثيق المظاهرات. يحاول الجيش التأكد بعدم تسريب المعلومات عن الأوضاع إلى الخارج. الجرائد والمحطات التلفزية تابعة للحكومة المغربية، وغيرهم من الصحفيين يتعرضون للمضايقة ويزاج بهم في السجن إنهم حاولوا كسر حاجز الصمت. نحن نحاول تصوير ما أمكن تصويره. في بلدان أخرى يخشى الناس ويتضايقون عند رؤيتهم لقوى الجيش منتشرة في المدن، وكأنهم يرون أنفسهم في حال حرب. لكن بخلاف هؤلاء، أنا ولدت تحت سلطة احتلال، ولدت في الصحراء الغربية. بالنسبة لنا سيكون من غير العادة أن لا نرى في مدننا تواجدا لقوات الجيش. لازلت أناضل ضد وجودهن منذ فترة طويلة. سرقت أولى آلات مصورة من طرف الشرطة العام 2009. كنت أقوم بتوثيق مظاهرة سلمية بحي معطلة. كي أصور مظاهرة سلمية ننسق فيما بيننا بشكل سري ونتخذ أقصى الإجراءات الأمنية كي لا نعرض المنظمين إلى الخطر. تلقيت معلومات مفصلة مسبقا عن المكان والتوثيق، وبات علي البحث عن مكان آمن بما يكفي أصور المظاهرة. لكن شرطيا بزي مدني اكتشفني وأنا متمركز من فوق أحد الأسطح. ظهروا فجأة ورموني من الحافة. عندما سقطت على الأرض كانت ساقي قد كسرت. سحبني أفراد آخرين من الشرطة أرضا إلى أسفل الشارع حيث ثمة إطار مشتعل. دفعوني إلى داخله. لم يكن الأمر حدثا، لكنهم كانوا يسعون لإظهار قوتهم ولكي يظهروا الحدث إلى أولئك الذين يحاولون كسر الحصار الإعلامي. أصبت إصابة بليغة وعانيت من الألم لأيام، وتم الحكم علي بالسجن لمدة عام كامل.
فبات يصنع فرغي والفجر يصنع فرغي والفجر وفي أيدي دبابس وأحجار.
رفاقي كانوا يدركون بأنه ليس بإمكانهم اقتناء تصوير جديدة من محل تجاري، فأغلب المحلات يملكها مستوطنون مغاربة، وهم يتعاونون مع السلطات ويزودونها بالمعطيات. فاضطر رفاقي إذن لتهريب كاميرات من الخارج. عندما أطلق سراحي انضممت مجددا إلى مجموعتي كي نواصل عملنا. في أحد الأيام وبينما كنت أصور مظاهرة رأيت أولى آلة التصوير المسروقة. كانت بين يدي شرطي بزي مدني. الآن يستخدمون آلاتنا المصورة لترهيب وأخذ معلومات عن الأشخاص المشاركين في الاحتجاج. حصلنا على آلة تصوير جديدة وعاهدت نفسي أن لا أضيعها مرة أخرى.
يلا يا قلبي
جزء مهم من عملنا هو توثيق وتصوير إصابات الأشخاص المشاركين في المظاهرات، بل كذلك توثيق العنف الممارس ضد الصحراويين في حياتهم اليومية. يتم بث ما تم توثيقه عبر الإنترنت وإرساله إلى المنظمات الحقوقية الدولية والمؤسسات الإعلامية عبر العالم. الشرطة هي الأخرى بالطبع تشاهد كل ما نبثه وتحاول دائما أن تجد أساليب جديدة لوقفنا.
مشاهد الدش دخلت مع واحد الزنقة وتم رجلي يجري هاك مع الداخل نقصوا علي وحدين وقبضوني ودانوا لواحد الخلع مرة المحطة ديال الطاكسيات اللي في العيون وقال لي راه قبضك وحدات الموت وتم عطاني وتم يقبضوا يدي بحال هكا ويخبطوا عليه وبداو في راسي النار بريكة وتم يدفلوا عليا ويقولوا الكلام خاسر ثم يبطوا فيه وفي بالجبهة تحيا الجبهة. أنا حسام جب عمري 14 سنة نقرا في حلوة السعدية في حي العودة.
الأشخاص الذين يظهروا فيما نبثه في أغلب الأحيان يواجهون تهديدات وعنف من الشرطة والتي تحاول إجبارهم على كشف هوية المصورين، لكنهم مصرين على ذكر ما يحدث. في طريق عودتها إلى المنزل بعد تصويرها شهادة ضحيتين، مرت زميلتي عفاف بالشارع حيث كانت تنظم أحدى المظاهرات. كانت تحمل آلة تصوير خبأتها تحت ذراعها. وبينما هي تحاول المرور من حصار الشرطة وأن تضع آلة التصوير في مكان آمن، اعتدي عليها من طرف شرطي بعد أن عرف أنها عضو في مجموعتنا. وقعت أرضا وكسر ذراعها وتسرق آلة التصوير الثالثة منها.
وأنا بدوري تعرضت للضرب المبرح من طرف السلطات المغربية، الشيء اللي نتج عنه كسر على مستوى اليد، وأنا الآن في حاجة لعملية. في العملية ذلك وضع الحديد في وسط اليد، وهذا كامل. وهذه الاعتقالات وهذه التعسفات ما هي إلا وسيلة من وسائل التدخل، من وسائل الهمجية التي ينهجها المستعمر المغربي ضد الشعب الصحراوي، ذلك الثني عن مواصلة النضال، والثني عن مواصلة النضالات المستميتة ضده. لكن الشعب الصحراوي إن شاء الله مستمر وعازم ومصر على مواصلة درب النضال إلى حين تحرير النصر والاستقلال إن شاء الله. كل الوطن أم الشهادة.
في إحدى الشوارع الرئيسية بالعيون المحتلة حملت كاميرا متخفية وقمت بتوثيق مظاهرة تطالب الأمم المتحدة إدراج مراقبة حقوق الإنسان في الصحراء الغربية ضمن اختصاصاتها. كنت واحدا من المستهدفين. تعرضت للضرب الشديد وقاموا بسرقة آلة المصورة. كانت آلة تصوير باهظة الثمن، لمت نفسي كثيرا لما حضرتها. يقومون بتصويرنا ونحن نصورهم. يقومون بذلك من أجل تجريم مقاومتنا، ونحن نصور من أجل إظهار المظالم. سيأتي اليوم الذي يسقط فيه الاحتلال، وستصبح صورنا ذكريات من ماضينا الأليم.
Oke. Ya, teman-teman, itu tadi filmnya, film pendek ya, hanya sekitar 20 menit. Tapi kalau ada komentar silakan. Kita juga ada teman dari Kazakhstan, ada 9 orang yang mungkin nggak bisa stay sampai selesai. Di chat juga sudah ada ya pertanyaan. Okay, so that was a really strong message sent in the movie. So thank you for that. So among us, I forgot to mention also among us there are 9 students from Kazakhstan who are also attending the course, but unfortunately they have another course at 3:30, so they will have to leave in around 5 minutes. But for those coming from Kazakhstan, if you have anything to share with us, you are most welcome to do that. So in the chat, we have a question here, a comment. Osakar, our colleague, Ben and Sana and Sid Ahmed, I'm curious about what do people in Morocco think about the Western Sahara? Do they consider it part of the country? Or maybe it is also the more or less similar situation in on West Papua, isn't it? So yes, please, maybe Benjamin or Sana or Sid can do comments.
Before answering that question, I was just really curious about the students from Kazakhstan, because I don't think there has ever been any contact between Kazakhstan and Western Sahara. So if you are here, would you like to leave us your email address? And we would like to ask you about organizations, universities, and some political situations over there. And maybe we could organize something in your country too, if you're here and would like that. We would like that.
I can also send you their contacts, emails. But if they're still here, maybe they can also write down in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, regarding the first question, I guess we can both answer. Like Sid Ahmed can say something and we can say something. Like our the general difference between if you compare like Israel and Morocco is that the Moroccan people are not allowed to even speak about Western Sahara. So Morocco has a law that says that you're not allowed to criticize the territorial integrity of Morocco, which means that it's illegal to even mention the word Western Sahara or at all talk about the fact that there is an occupation. So in that way, it's very hard for Moroccans, even if they would want to start an association that supports Western Sahara in any way. They would end up in prison. They would risk a lot. And it's the same actually in exile, like that the Moroccan people living in the diaspora and in exile are under very heavy surveillance. Maybe it's one of the most surveilled diasporas in the world. Even in Sweden, we recently met a Swedish journalist who had made an interview with a Moroccan who had criticized the occupation of Western Sahara. And after doing that, he had been violently beaten up by another Moroccan and ended up in the hospital. So the Moroccan government, they have a lot of control over even the diaspora if they criticize Western Sahara. If you compare to Israel, for example, where there actually are Israeli human rights organizations that openly talk about Palestine, and that's the big difference with the Moroccans. Like they cannot do it, and of course a lot of them are also brainwashed in school, and they learn that Western Sahara is part of Morocco and that the Sahrawis are terrorists. So they don't know so much in general, and the ones that we meet tend to be quite aggressive as well.
We cannot go to Morocco to speak with people in general because of who we are as human rights activists. And even if we could, people wouldn't tell us what they really think and believe, because speaking about that is very risky. So we would have to develop a deep trust over a long time period, and it's just something we cannot do. So I don't know, Sid Ahmed, maybe you have some other insights.
Yeah, of course. As you said, the Western Sahara issue in Morocco is very sensitive. Is very sensitive issue. So you cannot go like openly to any Moroccan and ask them about their views about what's happening in Western Sahara, because they have been brainwashed about the regime, the Moroccan regime, in the schools, in the media, in everything about the situation. It's very sensitive, and they are very careful talking about Western Sahara in general. And there are some journalists who dare to speak, and they ended up in prison, like Omar Radi, for example, and they have fabricated like issues about rape and some stuff in order to put him in prison, and he didn't say anything he just showed that the issue of Western Sahara is controlled by the regime, and he ended up in the prison. And in Morocco, there is also one political party who support self-determination to Western Sahara, and it's a small, unfortunately, small political party, but also the members of this political party, they suffered imprisonment, and they suffered a lot of suffering just for saying that they support self-determination to Western Sahara. It's very sensitive issue in Morocco, and not everyone is allowed to speak. It's 100% controlled by the regime, by the king and his entourage. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sid. Actually, Benjamin, there's someone from Kazakhstan also wrote down their email, so you can write it down, and perhaps next you can contact him. All right, so we have 3 comments or questions in the chat from Muhammad Sami, Azel, and Fadel Azmi. So Sami was asking the reaction of the European countries. Similarly, I think Azel was also asking about how European countries reacted or have the perceptions on what's going on there. And in comparison with the Palestine, for example, where there are also violence and hate speech, will you also see that comparison, and also in the Europe? And also Fadel asked me, asked about why is it that not many media covering this situation in Western Sahara. Anyone? Maybe Benjamin or Sana or Sid Ahmed?
Yeah, I mean, regarding Europe, we can take our country as an example, Sweden. We were about to recognize Western Sahara. As maybe Sid Ahmed mentioned, about 80 countries has recognized Western Sahara as a country, and so far there's no European country that has done this, and Sweden was very close to doing it in about 10 years ago, 2014, and we actually managed to recognize Palestine, even though the Israel lobby was strong. But in this case, the Moroccan lobby was stronger, so we never recognized Western Sahara. What happened was that when the Swedish government was doing it, like saying that they're going to recognize Western Sahara, the Moroccans sent refugee children from Morocco into Sweden, and there was a lot of children living by themselves on the streets of Sweden. And also the Moroccans, they burned the Swedish flag, they shut down IKEA, like they did a lot of things. And Morocco threatened that we will not take back these refugees unless you stop recognizing Western Sahara. So we never recognized Western Sahara. And the same thing has been done to many European countries, like using refugees as a threat, and they do this a lot in Spain as well. Like during COVID, Spain was treating Brahim Ghali, the Polisario president, for COVID, and Morocco became angry, so they released the border. They opened the border between Europe and Africa, which is, of course, between Spain and Morocco, and they released a lot of refugees into Spain. So this is always used as kind of a threat, the refugees, and the EU even pays Morocco to guard this border. So that's a level of control that Morocco can really use against Europe. So that's one of the ways that Morocco is always threatening Europe to not speak about Western Sahara.
And we have to distinguish between the different levels of society. When it comes to, the people in the street, they never know anything about Western Sahara, no matter where in the world you go. We've been in 20 countries. We haven't found, maybe in Italy has been the country that has the most awareness. And that's due to a long tradition of solidarity movement with over 70 civil society organizations. And you can really notice that on the street level, that people maybe recognize the flag or know what you're talking about when you bring up this issue, but no other country so far that we've gone to. And on the political level, I mean, nobody is supporting Morocco's position because they think it's a just position, but some politicians, of course, support it because of economic reasons or other reasons, national interest and so on. And that has to do with the refugees that Sana mentioned, or in Spain, for example, is buying fishing rights in the occupied territorial waters of Western Sahara. So Spanish fishermen are earning some money. So that's one reason. And in Germany, it's very interesting to contrast the Palestinian situation and the Western Sahara situation. We did a demonstration outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And of course, the police came fairly quickly, and they were asking us what flag we have. And if you're following German politics, you know that they're extremely anti-Palestine. If we would have had a Palestinian flag, we would not have been allowed to do a demonstration at that place. But when we told them it was the flag of Western Sahara, they looked slightly confused, and they said, well, in that case, no problem. So there's a big difference. When it comes to Palestine, you find stronger opinions, but in Western Sahara, people just don't know, so people don't even have opinions.
I mean, it's good and it's bad in a way, because it means that, like with Palestine, a lot of people have the kind of wrong idea because the history has been screwed by the Israelis, and that's bad, of course. But there's also a so much bigger solidarity movement for Palestine because people know about it, and Western Sahara is just unknown. Yeah. So yeah, Sid Ahmed, maybe you want to add about these questions.
Yeah, just I want to add that that in Europe in general, there is no country like recognizing Western Sahara as a part of Morocco. So Europe is acting like as a one country now, and regarding the economic agreement with Morocco, there are some development on the European Court of Justice in 2018. Polisario Front filed against the Moroccan agreement with the European Union in the European Court of Justice, and they managed to get a decision from the European Court of Justice saying that Western Sahara is not part of Morocco and should not be involved in any future agreement with Morocco, as without a consent of the people of this territory. And of course, Morocco challenged this decision after, and now we are waiting. In these days, we are waiting the final European Court of Justice decision about this decision, if they want to keep their previous decision or if they want to change it. But on a legally basis, there is no support of the Moroccan like claim in Western Sahara. Always the international law and the European Court of Justice and even the International Court of Justice has been in the side of Western Sahara. And it's very challenging for the Moroccan government, as Sana and Benjamin mentioned. Now they are using migrants, African migrant, as a weapon, in order to blackmail Europe to change their policies and to change many things in their favor about Western Sahara. So Spain is the weakest part in this game. So maybe some of you know that Spain has a border, like a border with Morocco. So there are two Spanish enclaves inside the African continent, Ceuta and Melilla. They are literally inside the Moroccan, the African mainland, and Morocco using this as advantage in their side. There are thousands of African migrants who ended up in Morocco in order to get easy way to go through Europe, and Morocco is using them to blackmail Spain and European countries. And if you change your mind about Western Sahara, if you're saying something that against our interest in this matter, we will release these thousands of migrants. So it's very simple as that. Yeah. So it's very on the political level. It's very difficult for political decision makers, or European political decision makers, to make any statement against Morocco or in favor of Western Sahara in general.
I think we also got a question about the harassment specifically, and I mean, in Europe, the only harassments that we get are from Moroccans, not from European people, because they don't know anything about Western Sahara. So we have had incidents, of course, when Moroccans who live in Europe come to the lectures that we're doing and try to disrupt the lectures. Otherwise, it's also a lot of online hate comments and threats every time we write something about Western Sahara. And also we've experienced that we meet with journalists and we do interviews, and then afterwards the Moroccan embassy threatens these journalists because they have written about Western Sahara. So that's the level of harassments that we see in Europe. So it's only from the Moroccans.
Sid Ahmed, did you face anything in France as a Sahrawi?
Yeah, the Moroccan community in France, they are very strong, and I am always very careful about this situation. Sahrawis usually, when they got involved in some demonstration for Western Sahara in France, they got harassed or sometimes they fight with some Moroccans paid by the Moroccan embassies. Yeah, but also they are in Europe. They cannot do many things, because in Europe here, when you have a permit to do a manifestation or a demonstration, they cannot go through easily and distract this demonstration. They can get imprisonment as well. Yeah, but what I want to say is that between us, Sahrawis and the Moroccans, there is no comparison between the two bodies. If you want, in the power matter. So Moroccans are very strong on media, on political alliance and in Europe in general, and Sahrawis not even recognized as a country by so many European countries. We have Polisario has some offices in some European capitals, but they are not recognized as a country. So so Morocco is taking advantage of this level of power between Sahrawis and also we are not that many Sahrawis in diaspora. We have a very strong community in Spain, but in other European countries there is no huge presence of Sahrawis, and unlike Moroccans, they are present in millions and thousands in many European countries.
Thank you, Sid Ahmed, Benjamin, and Sana. If there is more from the participants from the audience, you are most welcome to chat your comments or questions or raise hand, and then you can speak directly. Anyone? Or maybe Benjamin and Sana or Sid Ahmed, you want to add something? To add more to that? Maybe for the closing, because I don't see anyone else is giving any comments or questions.
Sure, we can just add that now when we are in Italy, we are very inspired by the solidarity movement here, that there are so many activities, and it gives us a lot of ideas for what can be done, for example, in Indonesia. As university students, one of those things is that you can write your thesis about Western Sahara and contribute to doing research about the topic. It's quite under-researched if you compare to other issues. I mean, it is the biggest remaining colony in the world, so there should be a lot more research done. And we don't think there's been anyone who's written about it in Bahasa Indonesian. So I think it would be a good contribution to the cause. And we know all of the prominent academics and professors on this topic of Western Sahara, and we're happy to give any contact to anyone who wants to write about this topic in your studies.
And we also want to underline the importance of solidarity to resolve these issues that we have in the world, whether it's Palestine, Western Sahara, or anywhere else. We need to engage with them, and we need to do what we can to get our country to adopt the necessary policies. And as university students, a good first step is to start a student association. Get a group of friends together, start having study circles, get into the topic, and then start doing advocacy to raise awareness. Because we need to reach a lot of people, and you are so many in Indonesia, over 200 million. So it's time to start doing the outreach and building solidarity. And what better way to do it than at the university? So if you're interested in doing that, we can help you with materials, with reports, with documentaries, with books. We can suggest speakers, you can organize your own events, and we're happy to help you with that. But we need you to take the lead on this, because you are Indonesians, and it's up to you to make your country be a champion for human rights and for decolonialism. And it's even in the Indonesian constitution that Indonesia should be a country that fights against colonialism. So what better way of doing that than to tackle the world's biggest remaining colony, which is Western Sahara?
Yeah, before going to Sid Ahmed, Agastya Pandu is raising his hand. Agastya? No, apparently maybe it happened without specific purpose. Okay, Sid Ahmed, maybe you'd like to give some kind of remarks, closing remarks.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Benjamin and Sana said about the issue of Western Sahara. So I really encourage students to study this issue deeply and make their thesis about this conflict, because it's really a conflict between good and bad, and between the international law and justice, and between the injustice and the occupation. So yeah, so I think and also if there are some Indonesian students want to make some field visit to the camps, or want to make interviews with some leaders or some political figures, we are happy to facilitate that. And thank you again for inviting me for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid Ahmed. Yes, and that point you made on, having, some insights from the political leaders might also be something that, we kind of like need to explore more, because I always consider this like a parallel situation with the West Papua, but also like the denying of the modern colonization, for example, or the situation there. But also it is interesting to see how Jakarta is perceived, and all other means that they've done to divert from the issues of secession, for example. So perhaps next time we can continue the discussion with also having the perspective of how the political leaders, and you mentioned also about the government in exile. Is it in exile, or just they're there but not having any power, influence?
Yeah, exactly. They are in exile. They are running the Western Sahara struggle from the exile on the Algerian territories, and they have also a huge presence in Africa, in South America, and Europe as well.
Yeah, that must be interesting to have also engage in conversation with them. Augusto, do you want to ask something or comment or anything? Because I saw you raise your hand again. Agustia Pandu.
Yeah, sorry. Could you hear my voice?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having a minor internet problems. Yeah. Greetings for all. Thank you, Sana and Benjamin, and also Ahmed, and also friends from CCHRS, Mrs. Sri and Sakar. First of all, I really enjoyed the online lecture session, and I came up with several questions on my mind. But first of all, I want to say that I really enjoyed your book, Mrs. Sri Lestari, Resisting Indonesia's Culture of Impunity. I've done that as my, one of my reading lists in early of this year, and I have one or maybe some interesting questions, because I'm happen to be a graduate in international relations, who also interested in the critical perspective of the global South regarding human rights. So here are my questions. Uh, Basic question: what is the role of academia in upholding human rights through transnational activism? Sorry, did you get that?
Yeah, we got it.
I could, yeah.
So
I
the
could
role
repeat.
of the
First of all,
academics. Okay.
Yeah, what is the role of academia in upholding human rights through transnational activism? And then I also have some concern, as we live in Indonesia, right? We may have a voice, but in this context, can academia be heard by governments? And last but not least, I want to also ask to friends from CCHRS, are you guys be interested in accommodating this Western Sahara studies in the future? This could be something interesting that we could, move forward and collaborate together.
Okay.
Yep,
The last one, I think, is a question to CCHRS, right?
Yep.
Whether it's where. Okay. All right. So I give it to maybe Sana or Benjamin, and then Sid Ahmed to
I
respond to
think
the
since we are not academics, me and Sana, we will pass on what role the academia has. Our opinion is that it should have a bigger role and that we will try to influence it to take a bigger role.
Sid Ahmed. Maybe you'd like to respond to that.
Yeah, of course, the academics can play very important role about illustrating Western Sahara issue to their audience. And unfortunately, there are not so many academics who are interested about this issue. I think in English you can find a lot of resources, very helpful resources regarding this issue, and even in French as well. In Arabic, unfortunately, there are many resources, but there are also many contaminated resources. So, like taking always the Moroccan point of view. So you have to be careful when you tackle this issue, because you have to take into account also the different positions, the different political positions into account. Yeah. So otherwise, you will end up like citing some Moroccan source. There is nothing bad about citing some Moroccan resources, but you have also to be balanced. You have to make some balance, and to also to go deeply investigate the issue regarding the international law and international justice, and not just to take it from any resource. Yeah, so you have to be careful regarding that.
We just want to say a quick thing that we have our next meeting with a city councillor of Pisa right now. So we're gonna have to leave, but we would like to ask
Okay.
all of you who would like to engage further with this question and would like to be in touch with us. Perhaps you could give your email addresses to Let's Study, and she could hand them over to us, and we'll send you a mail with some resources more to read about Western Sahara, and we could keep the discussion going. If you have any more questions, we can take them through email. We're sorry we have to leave so suddenly, but our schedule is always packed with activities for Western Sahara, so we're sure that you understand. Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you.
session.
Thank you, Benjamin and Sana, and best of luck with your meetings.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye.
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 Also, thank you, Sid Ahmed, for joining us, exploring this. And as we mentioned earlier, perhaps we should continue the discussion for other topics that related to that. And as Agastya was also suggesting, maybe also Agastya and CCHRS, we can explore more for collaboration or any works together on the Western Sahara. And we would love to have you join us in next initiative that we might have. Thank you again, Sid Ahmed, and thank you, everyone. Do you mind if we take pictures of the group together before we end the meeting?
Yeah,
This
sure.
is just for the documentation, if you
Yeah.
don't mind. So, participants, teman-teman bisa join ini ya, foto bersama ya. Silakan dibuka kameranya supaya kita bisa foto bersama untuk dokumentasi. Dan untuk teman-teman yang ingin kontak lebih lanjut dengan CCHRS ataupun ingin ikut dalam kegiatan-kegiatan mendatang, bisa kontak emailnya CCHRS yang tadi dibagikan Sekar di chat. Oke, silakan Sekar dipandu.
Oke, aku hitung 1, 2, 3. Satu lagi ya teman-teman. 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sir Ahmed, again. All the
Thank
best
you.
for you. And everyone, thank you so much, Mbak Anissa dan teman-teman. Thank you. Bye. See you in
Bye.
next activity. Bye.
Thank you, Bu
Selamat
Ayu.
siang. Saya tutup. Ya, assalamualaikum. Selamat
Recording
siang.